So it's like every few months, there's a brand new portable PC lighting up the news, promising to be better, faster, stronger. But what exactly does this conversation look like in 2024? Which machine offers you the best value for your money? And I feel like this question deserves an analogy. Let's think of these handheld computers like high-performance cars. They're each gonna have their strengths, their weaknesses, areas where they're gonna excel that their target audience is gonna love. The 911 is gonna have handling. The LaFerrari is gonna have power. And the Koenigsegg, well, not much needs to be said for that. So I have a solution to answering this question, especially for those that don't exactly know which handheld to go with. These portable PCs can be subjectively ranked and broken down into what I feel are meaningful categories of importance. When I first got into handhelds a few years ago, I really had no idea what to go with other than a Steam Deck, but times have changed. Competition is insane now, and the devices out there are only getting more refined. We have 6 of the most popular handheld gaming PCs on the market going head to head in 6 different categories. The MSI Claw was in it, but mine actually died in the middle of filming, so we're just gonna put that one to the side. So of course this is my list, my opinions on the entire experience. Of course everyone's gonna have a different subjective opinion about these handhelds, but this is just mine. So getting into category number 1, that's gonna be display. So category number 1 is interesting because you have to manage to make your display look nice, but you don't want to end up nuking performance required to drive all those pixels. You have to find a sweet spot in balancing this, and some companies have a different idea as to where that is. So Lenovo's Legion Go has the largest display at 8.8 inches, 144 Hz, 1600p. It's IPS, not OLED, but it's the on-paper screen spec king. Now, both the Allies and LCD Steam Deck have 7-inch screens. The original Steam Deck display was nothing to go crazy about. It was actually quite the opposite of a fantastic screen. The color performance was pretty flat. You had to use plugins like Decky in the past to boost the saturation, whereas the Ally, when it came out, it was a night and day difference. 1080p, 120 Hz versus 800p, 60 Hz. Another really cool thing about the Ally screen is the variable refresh rate support. This essentially means your gameplay actually feels smoother, especially in those target frame rates where any fluctuations or stuttering gets ironed out. Now, the dark horse in this conversation that kind of surprised a lot of people was the Steam Deck OLED. This brought true HDR support with a Linux handheld. It gets up to 1000 nits of peak brightness, which beats out every handheld on this list. You get outstanding color accuracy, perfect black levels without any backlight bleed that you'd see on normal IPS displays. It's 90 Hz, which is a big bump compared to 60, but it's still 800p. So Valve didn't increase the need for performance to drive this panel, which is a good thing. Still, the increased contrast does make the display look sharper. But if you want that crisp image quality, the Legion Go, Ally X, and its predecessor are all going to deliver above the Steam Decks. So Legion Go gets points for being the largest, fastest, sharpest display, and the Allies having the same screen with variable refresh rate makes them essentially the smoothest gameplay experience. And the Steam Decks fall at the bottom, but honestly, the OLED display is neck and neck with the Windows handhelds for me. Now, category number 2 is ergonomics. Of course, these are handhelds, they're not gonna break your hands, but this is gonna be an area where you want a device to be comfortable, especially if you're gonna be using it for a couple of hours, maybe more. You also want the controls to feel good. It's how you interact with anything, especially when you're emulating a gamepad or a mouse and keyboard. Some companies have shown they value the importance of having mini trackpads, and others not so much. The Legion Go is like a Swiss Army knife of controls. There's buttons on the back, dials, buttons embedded on the sides, a trackpad, removable controllers. You see the inspiration from the Switch. It's a big handheld, especially if you have bigger hands, it's gonna feel pretty comfortable, but if you have smaller hands, it might not be the most portable experience. That being said, the new Ally X does feel vastly upgraded compared to the previous Ally. I was never the biggest fan of how angular the corners felt in my hands. The thumbsticks, considering that the dead zones were trash, always felt like they were pretty loose and imprecise, and Asus basically fixed all of that. The buttons are some of the best feeling gamepad buttons I've ever used, just more tactile and tighter. D-pad has really nice diagonals modeled in. It's rounded off now, similar to how the Steam Deck feels, but I said this in the last video, if you use it for a while, there's this little ramp on the back that can make your grip slip off. Now the Steam Decks, I don't know if it's the way Valve balanced the weight of the frame, it's always felt the best in my hands. It's outstanding at being flexible with its controls, whether you value having trackpads or not if you're in desktop mode. The haptics are best in class, still head to head for having some of the best thumbsticks. I think the Ally X probably edges it out slightly now on the thumbstick side of things, but Valve has only managed to tweak the controls further with the OLED model. Not even considering how easy it is to use custom community-made control profiles, I feel like the Steam Deck OLED takes the ergos at the top with the Ally X right under it with the rest to follow. Now, category number 3, support. And what I mean by this is not only aftermarket third-party support, but how good is the warranty and repairability of these machines. You knew this one was coming. You want to make sure that your device has the least amount of issues as possible, and if there is something that comes up, you're covered. Now, believe it or not, most of the handhelds on this list are pretty much good on the repairability side, but there are some companies that have been in the line of fire recently. Valve and iFixit have a program where you can source any OEM parts for Steam Decks on top of full teardown and repair guides. Steam Deck OLED also replaced the Phillips screws on the LCD with Torx screws and metal screw pillars, so less of a possibility to strip or break anything on the plastic frame. The Legion Go and ROG Allies both share very modular internal constructions. You can source parts through a third-party distributor for the Legion Go and the Ally, but replacement part inventory is usually a hit or miss. The Legion Go has Hall effect sensors, so you shouldn't need to worry about stick drift being an issue, and the Ally X has the option to swap the sticks to Hall effect. Now, the real outlier that's been under fire for warranty support is Asus. They had the whole fiasco with the SD card situation, and it was never really fully addressed, and there was multiple reports of their warranty and customer service being terrible for the Allies. So at the end of the day, we need to hold tech companies liable to their promises, and trusting Asus as a potential customer for their warranty practices is kind of tough. So besides that, for aftermarket support for the Steam Deck, there's a ton of accessories available. Same goes with the Ally and Legion Go. Valve just really crushes it when it comes to device support. It's the least worrisome device, and you really can't go wrong with the reliability of the Steam Decks. All right, so we gotta talk about performance, a make or break for a lot of people. But with performance comes compromises. The chips are exactly the same for 3 of the Windows handhelds, still AMD Z1 Extreme for the Ally X, Ally, and Legion Go, which is faster than what the Steam Decks offer on paper, but it doesn't really mean that you're guaranteed to smoke a Steam Deck in every title. If you're someone that plays heavier AAA games and wants the best performance these handhelds can deliver, it can be a mixed bag. Performance per watt has always been a strong suit for the Steam Decks, which means if you play light titles, indie games, emulation, the decks usually leverage lower power, which can increase battery life in that sub 15 watt range. Whereas the Ally, Ally X, Legion Go are going to push further, turboing in that higher wattage range where you want to squeeze as much FPS as possible. Now, there are some titles where all devices level out pretty similarly. I've noticed that the Windows handhelds have really improved the fan curves, even being quieter than the Steam Decks in some cases. So if there is a specific title you know you want to play, it's probably not a bad idea to look up some benchmarks for them. I've also been using these handhelds a lot more in dock setups, which I know a lot of you guys are really into. I've been testing out performance at 2K, 120 Hertz with some gaming projectors. This one is from BenQ. It's their X300G. It does 4K at up to 120 Hertz. I've been using it at like 100 inches, and it's a game changer. There are some limitations with USB-C on some docks. Of course, these handhelds don't have the performance of something like a PS5 or a Series X, but this is pretty awesome. I might do a standalone video on combining one of these portable projectors with these handhelds, because having a portable setup on the go that's low latency and bright enough where you don't need a screen hanging from the ceiling is like the perfect step up from having to carry around a portable monitor. Now, overall, this one might not be a shocker. The Ally X has the best performance amongst all these handhelds. The little optimizations and thermals have gone a long way with Asus. Now, battery life is probably the one area that has had the most shockwave effect since we last did one of these, because the Ally X doubling the battery life to 80 watt hours pretty much smokes everything right now. The Steam Deck comes behind it because it is so well optimized, but the sheer capacity difference of 50 watt hours versus 80 lets the Ally X take it. Even if Windows is not a well-optimized, power-efficient operating system, the fact that Asus is able to keep the form factor a similar size while doubling the battery life is pretty mind-blowing. Keep in mind, the LCD Steam Deck that I'm using has a ton of charge cycles on it, so I do have to plug it in a bit more. But the rest of the Windows handhelds just kind of follow behind with okay battery life. They have to work against the fact that they have higher resolutions, higher refresh rates. They're gonna use more power, and it's gonna hurt them in the long run for battery life. Now, if I am using any of these plugged into the wall, channel sponsor Ugreen always has their own chargers, which are better than what comes in the box. This is their Nexode Pro 100 watt charger. It's a 3-in-1 with 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A. You can charge up to 100 watts out from a single port, and it only takes 27 minutes to go from 0% to 50% if you charge a 14-inch MacBook Pro. That's normally how I run any of these handhelds in turbo mode for testing, and since it's a 3-in-1, it's pretty sweet and compact for traveling, since you can charge 3 different devices at once from a single unit. There's multiple intelligent systems that control current, temperature, so you don't need to worry about any of the downsides when you're fast charging. I have links to all their stuff down below if you're interested in picking anything up. So to wrap up the battery category, Ally X is at the top, with the Steam Deck OLED and everyone else falling behind. Now, our last category is software. That's the actual user experience you get, whether you're using this as a gaming machine or a productivity machine. It definitely varies depending on the handheld. I would say by now, every device has had their fair share of continued software updates, knowing most of these handhelds started as first-gen hardware not that long ago. Windows is always going to be in the spotlight as one of the reasons why you either buy one of these or the reasons you don't want to buy one of these. On the Steam Decks, I had one update while setting it up. That was it. On Windows, of course, I had to do multiple Windows updates. I had to go through Game Pass and Office ads, then do AMD drivers. So to say that one experience is a lot smoother than another is an understatement. Windows is what Windows has always been. It has its strengths like game compatibility, modding, and while the in-house software that Lenovo and Asus use has gotten significantly better, it's just not as fluid as what Valve has done with the Steam Deck. It's just easy. Sleep to wake works flawlessly most of the time. The experience that Linux has delivered is a lot more console-like, and it's only gotten better with compatibility. SteamOS keeps everything safe for those that just want an easy, stress-free gaming experience, and for that reason alone, I really like the Steam Decks, enough where the software category slightly edges out over Windows. And what's funny is while I graded each of these handhelds 10 points per category for a max score of 60, the results are pretty accurate to my current experience. The Steam Deck OLED and Ally X, I feel, are the best handhelds out right now. The Legion Go is a great device, followed by the Ally, which I feel are neck and neck. The LCD Steam Deck is another fantastic option, but here's the thing. When you start to consider pricing, the whole ranking system can be challenged. These are not cheap devices. You really have to consider which categories are most important to you, weigh in where all of these score based on your list and your metrics, and then you should have a better idea as to which one you should get. As of right now, if I had no choice but to pick one, I'd take a Steam Deck. I use Windows every day on my main system, and taking a break, just kicking back with a smooth experience that Valve has perfected over the years, little by little, it's pretty good. Spoiler, there is no objective winner out there for everyone. Nothing is best for every single person, but hopefully this is able to clear up the discussion a bit. So please drop down your opinions in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think when it comes to scoring all the million handhelds out there. And huge thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.